this meeting of Sylvania City Council for September 18th, 2023 to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Fry?
Here.
Mr. Hanson?
Here.
Mr. Hanem?
Here.
Mr. McCann?
Here.
Mr. Richardson?
Mr. Richardson is excused.
Ms. Stout? Here. Mrs. Westfall?
Here.
6 members of City Council are present, therefore a quorum does exist. We invite everyone in the House to join us for our Pledge of Allegiance, this meeting led by Mr. McCann.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And item 3 is additions to the agenda. I'd like to point out that a calendar for 2024 has been distributed to your spaces this evening. Mr. Fry,
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
members of City Council. Hearing none, Mr. Sanford.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to give a report on our JED program.
We'll make the JED update, agenda item 15.
Thank you.
Mr. Schreier,
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Chief Miller,
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Aller,
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
or Ms. Prying.
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
With that, is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and the agenda for this evening's meeting is set. Agenda item 4 is approval of our meeting minutes from the last meeting on September 5th, 2023. Mr. Fry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move approval of the meeting minutes for the council meeting of September 5th, 2023 as submitted. Second.
Moved and seconded to approve those September 5th meeting minutes as submitted. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and those meeting minutes are approved. Agenda item 5 is proposed resolution number 9, 2023, to accept the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission. Mr. Schreier, why don't you give us your update on this?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do this each year at this time of the year, once a year. Note, the rates did not change this year, but the valuations have changed, and it's gonna allow us to collect an additional $70,000. That's split between 3 or 4 funds, but we're gonna get an extra $70,000 collected next year.
Some of this is inside millages, some of this is outside millage.
Yep, correct.
Okay. Questions for Mr. Schreier? Hearing none, Mr. Fry, we have Resolution 9, 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce Resolution 9, 2023, and read by title only, as all members have previously received copies. Resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor. I move passage of Resolution number 9, 2023 as an emergency measure.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to put Resolution 9, 2023 as an emergency measure. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and Resolution 9, 2023 is enacted as an emergency measure. Thank you. Agenda item 6 is proposed ordinance 76, 2023. This is a realignment of personnel in the Finance and Human Resources Office. Again, Mr. Schreier, give us an update here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had an employee resign in the finance office, and I took that opportunity to look at a lot of different scenarios, how we could set it up, and this is what I decided on. This provides, we didn't have a true definition of who would be in charge if I'm out of the office in the previous setup. This will clear that up, and create a a level where someone is clearly in charge. And I'm doing all this staying within the original budget that you passed for this year.
So by putting someone in charge, that's why you're having a new designation, and elevating her salary up,
Correct.
and then hiring someone new at a lower salary that is a subordinate.
Yes.
Okay. That's what this is about. It actually saves $10,000 in the budget. I am reviewing with Mr. Schroyer seeing if there's some way we can come up with a classification for a part-time position to have a utility player in City Hall. We are fairly tightly staffed at the moment, and we might need somebody that can fill in the finance office, or fill in the mayor's and the law director's office, or in the service director's office downstairs. I don't have that proposal for you yet, but we are working on that possibility, and that $10,000 could go towards that. But we have so fewer employees now than we did 10 years ago. When somebody's out, it can be a challenge. Okay, with that, we have are there any questions for Mr. Schroyer?
Yeah, I'm trying to understand the work responsibilities. If you're saying someone's in charge, are you saying the HR manager would be the next level?
Ultimately, I'm in charge of the whole department,
Of
but
course.
the HR manager will now be the first line of supervision to the new position. Where in the past, they were completely equal positions, so they just both reported to me and nobody else.
So that, but both, I'm trying to understand the responsibilities of the potential new individual. Is it more HR or finance?
New person?
Yes,
The new position is finance, it's accounts payable,
strictly.
yes.
So, but the last person, I understand, had dual responsibility.
We had it set up where, with them two people being equal, they both had accounts payable and human resources responsibilities, and they were ultimately gonna go back and forth on like an annual basis, not daily, but like on an annual basis.
So how would, there would be backup for neither in this instance? So they would each have unique roles, so
They're still gonna be trained to be backup, and
for
actually.
each other.
Yeah, and actually, the human resources manager in this proposal already knows the job of the new person. They've been doing that job. So that's already taken care of. It's the new person will have to learn the human resources to be the backup.
Okay, and so payroll and other financial responsibilities could be handled by both individuals.
Correct.
And I expect them to be. People take vacations in their jobs.
Yeah.
And then it's my requirement that the new person, as well as Nora, the existing person, be able to either prepare payroll or do other HR or finance duties. We've had two people there in the past, and we have two now, but they, although not equal, they will be interchangeable in their work abilities.
In other entity alignments, and I'm talking outside of government, but in government included, HR reports to law or to the COO, CEO. So in the way we've had it set up, they've been reporting to finance.
It's finance, but I also serve as the personnel director, so they're actually reporting to the personnel
Personnel
director. It's just one person in this instance.
Okay,
We have enough desks for that many people. We just don't fill them.
So you are correct. The human resources is not typically under finance. It's under personnel. It's just in this case, that's still me, so.
all right, thank you.
From a historical standpoint, Brian, we had two director-level people that filled those roles in the past. Mr. Eichenauer was the personnel director, Mr. Plock was the finance director, both at Mr. Schroyer's level. We no longer do that. We combine those two responsibilities. into one director.
Good note to know. Thank you.
Other questions for Mr. Schroyer?
I did have a question in regards to the administrative assistant position, Mr. Mayor, if that's okay.
Certainly.
Mr. Schroyer, it talks about a class 15, so in the modification, the person who, I guess, let me ask a broader question. The person who left, did they go to another community or did they go outside of city government?
Kind of a combination of both. They went to work in the courthouse at Lucas County and to use their law degree. So,
Okay, so they had a lot of,
yes.
okay.
And they chose to return to that profession.
No, the reason I was asking the question, we've had some conversations in the past, Mayor, about compensation structures for senior level. That's why I was just curious if it was one of those economic things, but it sounds like it was more about occupation. And then the other question is, the one position, the class grade of 15, I think if I'm reading that correctly, that's where this new administrative assistant finance position would be.
Correct.
I know that more generally, it's been difficult to find individuals in all sorts of occupations regardless. Do you anticipate having a difficulty in finding an individual to fill that slot?
We actually have found somebody.
Oh, okay.
She's on the job.
Yes, she just started.
I have a question. In the past, I filled in for Sharon when she was clerk of council. In case there's an emergency, in my case, I would love to have somebody as a backup for me. Would the possible part-time person, would that be a role that maybe we could?
That's something the mayor and I have been
Okay.
talking about. That's, your position is included, or the clerk, the council clerk.
For
It's
emergency?
included, yeah.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
certainly to sit at your desk, perhaps not have the same responsibilities as clerk of council, but
But in case of an emergency, that I couldn't be here, it'd be great to have somebody to,
Nora is the next person to be here.
Nora would be?
Right
Okay,
now,
well, we can discuss that further. That's great, thank you.
So I'm a bit confused. So we've hired an individual for a position that council hasn't yet created?
The position exists. It was a position that Sharon Bucher had back before she became council clerk.
Right?
What we're doing is changing the language, and is it the charter, Leslie, that talks about the makeup of the finance
No,
department?
it's the codified
Or
ordinances.
we're changing the language in the codified ordinance that defines what's included in the finance department. The position was already there. It was just never filled after Sharon
It was-
became council clerk.
Administrative secretary personnel position in
Okay.
the Department of Personnel.
So we're not changing Exhibit C then? Or are we changing Exhibit C?
Exhibit C is the corrected one.
With the new title?
It's there was an administrative assistant personnel position that is being eliminated, in administrative assistant finance.
So we're
is
changing
new
the word.
title. Yes,
Got it.
yep.
Okay, but they're still class grade 15, whatever
Correct.
that
Yep.
means. Economic.
That
Okay.
remained the same as what it was before.
Okay. Now I got it.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, this is a long title. Mrs. Westfall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce ordinance number 76-2023. All members of council having received copies in advance, I'll read by title only. Revising the administrative, departmental, and divisional organization of the city and the codified ordinances thereof by amending sections 129.01B to eliminate the human resource specialist positions, to add the administrative assistant finance and human resources manager positions under the supervision of the director of finance/personnel. Amending Sylvania Codified Ordinance Section 126.01B to eliminate the administrative secretary personnel position. Amending Sylvania Codified Ordinance Section 139.02A to add the class code, grade, and title for the position of Administrative Assistant Finance, amending Sylvania Codified Ordinance Section 139.03 to add the salary and position of Human Resources Manager. I move passage of ordinance number 76-2023 as an emergency measure.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded for passage of ordinance number 76, 2023 as an emergency measure. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and ordinance 76, 2023 is enacted as an emergency measure.
Mr. Mayor, I just note, and I know you said it, but it's amazing how much smaller our overall staff in the city is over the time that I've been on council. Not that I had anything to do with any of that, except I voted for all those changes. But that's something that we ought to share with our neighbors when we talk to them about. We definitely have a more efficient city government than we've ever had. And I think from talking to people, they're happy with the job we're doing. And I appreciate your leadership in overseeing that.
Thank you, Mr. Hanum. We have very good people working for the city of Sylvania. We provide them with good technology, and it works well when everybody's there. It's humming along, but when people take vacations, I'm not allowed to chain them down. But it does work well, and I appreciate your comments. I know you all get into City Hall, but if you go into particularly the finance office, there's half the desks are empty.
They're empty, yeah.
Same is true down in the service department. So,
It's a different place than it was.
tax department, we're still there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the carotid artery, Mayor.
All right. That gets us up to agenda item 7, which is proposed ordinance 77, 2023, authorizing the donation of accident investigation equipment to the Maumee Police Department. Chief Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For about 20 years, I was actually a member of our crash investigation unit. When I was initially hired in the 90s, we were definitely a lot busier, and I'm very happy to report that we haven't had a fatal crash for a long time. A lot of our serious crashes have been mitigated through engineering and figuring out where our issues are. So a lot of this equipment we bought at a time when we were using it heavily. It is a technology that officers have to stay up on to use it, and it also requires us to upgrade the equipment. At this point, looking at the department and our structure and the use of it, it's just not efficient for us at this time to keep this equipment. We've reached out to Maumee Police Department, who has a need for it, and they're willing to accept it and take on any costs that they have to upgrade the equipment to make it useful for them at this time. In the event that we have any serious crashes, we've already been in contact with the State Highway Patrol, and they will come in and assist us with the technical side of the investigation, because that's what they do. Any questions?
Oh,
So we're essentially gonna substitute State Highway Patrol on those rare instances where we might need them for
Correct.
training and staffing
They-
that job ourselves.
They do not come in and take the crash report for us. Our officers would still be the ones that handling it and working in conjunction with the state patrol. What they would do is they would send someone that's called a reconstructionist. That
Okay,
has all the technical knowledge, has this equipment that's up to date, will come in, can map out an entire scene, can do all the calculations from vaults and tumbling and your skid marks and all that information. That's what they specialize in. They can do crush analysis of cars to determine speeds. We have used them several times throughout our career. When we had the one vehicle go off the interstate that was beyond our capabilities to handle a bolt type accident. And we've used them for some serious crashes that, just for liability reasons and for insurance purposes, that we made sure that everything was documented as well as it could be. Because it had a chance of being that type of crash.
right.
So,
And is it safe to presume that those individuals, hopefully they're never called in, but if they were, are full-time dedicated individuals that do nothing probably but this.
That is correct.
Yeah.
And the
So-
one that we've had come in and help us a couple times is out of the Finley Post. And they'll travel all throughout Northwest Ohio or wherever they need them.
We used to have a problem on the entry ramp to southbound US 23. We had cars that would fishtail out into the main line. We had at least one or two fatalities there until ODOT finally installed that concrete wall.
I handled
remember
two
that.
personally.
You know, and I'd forgotten the one over holiday break where that car flipped off US 23 and ended up upside down on the railroad tracks and was not discovered for some time.
About 24 hours, 36 hours later.
I'd forgotten
I was
that
on
one.
that one.
Okay. Any questions for the chief? What, is there a dollar value? Where you think this might have been? This is fairly old equipment, so
This is
it's,
fairly old equipment. I wanna say the Nikon, which is it's like an engineering piece of equipment. That was probably about $9,000 when we bought it. But again, it's computerized, so it has to be upgraded. The VC2000 is you could actually put it in the car and go out and play chess kids, get technical, but we've had that equipment for 20 years,
Yeah.
so.
I just want to be able to discuss it with Mayor Carr, that's all.
Okay. Well, in that case, we can inflate it and say it's worth 20, right?
All right. We do have ordinance number 77, 2023, to allow us to transfer this equipment. Mr. Fry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce ordinance number 77, 2023. All members having previously received a copy, I'll read by title only. Authorizing the donation of accident investigation equipment to the Maumee Police Department, determining said property to be of no further use to the city of Sylvania. I move passage of ordinance number 77, 2023 as an emergency measure.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for passage of ordinance number 77, 2023 as an emergency measure. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and ordinance 77, 2023 is enacted as an emergency measure. We are now on to agenda item 8, which is proposed ordinance 78, 2023. This again is become an annual banner that we put across Main Street advertising the Fall Festival. The banner even says third weekend in October and doesn't put specific dates on it. It's a big weekend for us here. These banners all come to City Council for approval. Mr. Hanem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move, find the ordinance, I'm doing it on the computer here. Oh, I got it. I'm still struggling with the computers though. Okay, move adoption of ordinance number 78-2023, and move adoption as an emergency measure, approving the banner application of the Sylvania Area Chamber of Commerce, authorizing the zoning administrator to indicate such approval on behalf of the city of Sylvania, and I move adoption as an emergency.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for passage of ordinance number 78, 2023 as an emergency measure. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and ordinance 78, 2023 is enacted as an emergency measure. Agenda item 9 is proposed ordinance 79, 2023. We have a regional combined health district. This dates back about 28 or 28 years. We used to have a separate Lucas County Health District from the City of Toledo Health District, but at that time, our representative to the Health Commission, Dr. Newton, promoted the combination of the two. I remember meeting him and being courted to approve this, and I had a township trustee that was all over me to get it done. But I was convinced of the benefits of doing it. And I didn't know about Mary at the time. This was pre-Mary Westfall, and I didn't connect the two until many years later. But this contract really hasn't been updated much since then. And populations have changed, requirements have changed. And we have a very good representative on the board now. And he approves of these changes. But I would like to have our attendee to those meetings, Mr. Aller, as safety director, give us his update as to what the changes are and why this is an all right modification.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The primary changes to the agreement was the more clarifications of a lot of issues of what some services that Toledo and Lucas County had kind of provided in the past, and how those services blended into the overall cost apportionment to each of the cities and villages. And so that was a lot of the language that they had to work through. It talks about, they did put in term limits for the members of the Health District Board, and they've limited that to 3 terms. You had, in the past, there were individuals that were, had been on there for a long time. And, you know, as you can, things change. You know, imagine what healthcare was like 20 years ago and what it's like today. So they wanted to make sure that they had changing thoughts, changing ideas on how the operation was run as things progressed. So they did put in a 3-term limit for each of the representatives. The other thing that they did is defined, I mentioned earlier, they defined some of the services that City of Toledo and the Board of County Commissioners make. The Board of County Commissioners will now be basically responsible for the cost of the tuberculosis clinic. That will not be factored into the general operating expenses any further. Lucas County will take those. And then historically, City of Toledo and Lucas County has provided the home for the Toledo-Lucas County Health District. And they'll continue to do that. That's also clarified in here. And with the, you know, that came about with all of the talk of the jail going where the health district currently sits. And so they wanted to get that further defined in the agreement as well. So, and then the last thing that changed was it didn't really change. It's just the population figures had never been updated through the years. And so they just updated the population figures and the split of those entity shares based on the new population figures. So,
And that's why our number went up.
yeah.
Okay.
We had that.
It's not as much that we went up, it's Toledo's gone down so much.
Yeah. Wait, I know the old agreement, this 4.44% number isn't in the agreement, so that, will that change, or is that fixed for the term?
I believe the intent is to every 5 years use updated census data.
Okay.
And so that'll be good for the 5-year period through 28, which this agreement will go through. And then on that renewal, then they'll use the most updated census. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I read the agreement and I couldn't find that number.
Yeah, it's not in there.
Yeah, okay.
So I have a quick question. Kevin, are you then the representative for Sylvania at the board seat? Is that what we're to understand?
The board seat is actually held by, I forget his first name.
That's what I wanted to confirm.
Richard.
Yes, now I'm remembering. Yeah.
Richard Monk is our
I didn't think it
attendee.
was you, but I couldn't remember who it
No,
was.
he's
Yes,
actually
I
on the
did know him.
board.
Yeah.
The mayor is the designated representative for all the mayors are the
Yeah.
designated representatives. Most mayors designated an alternative to attend on their behalf. And
We are very well represented on the health board by Dr. Richard Monk, who is in his first term. We were fortunate that he volunteered for the position. He's held many positions in ProMedica in hospitals and is really on top of it. we have been in discussion with him quite a bit in the last few weeks concerning the search for the new health commissioner. That's a big choice that was going on. He contacted me maybe a month ago to see how I felt about it, hiring inside versus outside, and we had a discussion about it. And I'm sure you probably read in the media a week or two ago that the Toledo City Council and Lucas County are equally funding the cost of a national search for a new health commissioner. They hired from the inside the last time, and it's good to go outside, I think, every other time. And that is what they're doing. You know, we've been through a pandemic. We need to take a fresh look at this. The retired commissioner did a very fine job getting us through it, but it's time to move on. And I think he was tired out too. All right, so that's where we're at. Other communities have passed this. Leslie or Kevin, do you know who's passed this?
Yes, Mommy passed it without the term limits, which is just a unilateral change that they made, which the rest of the participants don't know how to interpret that. Oregon has passed it. Toledo is considering it. It's on their agenda, their council agenda review. So we're getting there slow but sure.
If there's no further questions, we do have ordinance number 79, 2023.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Fry.
because of my contractual relationships for various businesses I have ownership in, I would like to request the opportunity to push back from the table on this particular item.
We need a motion to allow Mr. Fry to push back.
So moved.
Second.
We'll take a vote on that motion first. The motion is to allow Mr. Fry to push back from the table due to a possible conflict of interest. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and we'll let the record show that Mr. Fry has withdrawn from the table for this. Therefore, I call upon another member of the Safety Committee, Mrs. Westfall, to present this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce ordinance number 79-2023. All members of the council having received copies in advance, I'll read by title only. Authorizing the mayor and director of finance to enter into an amended agreement for the establishment of a regional combined health district for the administration of health and environmental services within the geographical jurisdiction of Lucas County. I move final passage of ordinance number 79, 2023 as an emergency measure.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded for passage of ordinance number 79, 2023 as an emergency measure. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries and ordinance 79, 2023 is enacted as an emergency measure. Thank you. Let the record show that Mr. Fry is now rejoining us at the table as we begin discussion of agenda item 10. Mr. Aller, I have you down for this as well. You have a letter in the council packet requesting a committee of the whole meeting for an update on the downtown transportation improvements. Go ahead and present that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've had, as the letter indicates, we've had several discussions with utility companies over the past few months. And I've also had, conversations with various council members and things of that nature on, things that were important or maybe not so important and things like that as we move forward. As a result of those discussions, I would like to, I'm requesting a committee of the whole meeting so that we can kind of review some things that have come out of those discussions and meetings, kind of review the costs that are associated with some of these things, how it might impact our time frame, and some suggestions that we have to be able to better have a better project at the end of the downtown transportation improvement project, and things of that nature, and how that all is going to tie together with use of the ARPA funds and things like that. So, my first thought, I don't know what's happening, but of course, to have a committee of the whole meeting just prior to the next council meeting, but that is certainly council's discretion.
That would be Monday, October the 2nd, probably at 6:30. Would an hour be sufficient, Mr. Aller?
I think so, because I think we can probably get through things, in about, 20 minutes. And then that would open up some questions that I'm sure council will have.
The burying of the utilities is the main issue and its effect on the budget and the schedule for the project. That's what we're going to be discussing.
I have a conflict and cannot make that, I won't be at council that night, but I can have a separate meeting with Mr. Aller and get fully up to speed, so I'm not concerned about that. It works for other council members.
Works for me.
I'm available.
I'm fine. Mr. Hayden?
All right.
Hearing that, Mr. Mayor, if you'd like to make a motion to set a committee of the whole meeting to review findings of the downtown transportation improvement project at 6:30 PM in council chambers on Monday, October the 2nd. Second.
Moved and seconded to set a committee of the whole meeting for Monday, October 2nd at 6:30 in council chambers to discuss the downtown transportation improvements. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and I direct the clerk to post that meeting. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 11, you'll find in your council packets a memo from Mr. Schroyer. This is an every quarter update of then and now certificates. Mr. Schroyer, why don't you, there's just a couple of bigger ones in here, 25,000 and 20,535. Why don't you go over a little bit on this, why we do it again?
Yeah, the auditors asked us to do this in our audit. What this is purchases are kind of made on an emergency basis, so they can't follow the typical procedure of getting a purchase order signed before you make the purchase. The auditors have asked us if any of those are over $3,000 in value, that we bring it to council and they approve it. So that's what we've been doing on a quarterly basis. The total of all these is just about 212,000.
Mr. Schroyer, I have to ask the question. The largest one is with Lucas County Prosecutor's Office, and it says we have a contract, 22 and 23. Why is this on the list if we have a contract and it's in the budget?
All this stuff can actually be in the budget, but it's still, the process is still that the finance director has to approve that the funds are there to create the purchase order. Leslie might be able to speak better on what that actual 25,000 is.
Yeah, I think council approved that. It was just, I think, the process question,
Yeah.
because
Okay.
that is just the annual agreement that we do for the victims advocate that you guys approved the agreement for. So we have Erica Drake provides victims support services and does a fantastic job helping anybody who has to come into contact with the prosecutor's office at the court.
We did have our audit exit conference a couple of weeks ago, Mr. Fry,
Yes.
and the auditors, whatever we're doing, the auditors were happy with it, and I'd like to continue with the same process.
Yep.
So with that, I'm looking for a motion to approve this September 15th, 2023 then and now certificates memo from Mr. Schroyer.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the then and now certifications that Mr. Schroyer put forward on September the 15th, 2023 to council and yourself.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve these then and now certifications. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Schroyer. Going to page 2 of our agenda, we're now up to agenda item 12. Distributed at your council seats this evening is the proposed schedule of regular meetings for the year 2024. Mrs. Bigelow, why don't you give us a description of what we've got here?
This calendar, I followed Sharon Bucher's format on setting these. There are 4 holidays in the year of 2024 that will move our council meetings to Tuesdays. That would be January, February, and September. Otherwise, they will be on the first and third Mondays of the meetings, and plan commissions on the second Wednesdays of each month.
One meeting that we have changed in the past could be the one scheduled for January 2nd. That's close to holiday travel time. That one could slide to the Wednesday, I believe,
Okay.
if you choose to. I don't know what bowl games you might be traveling to or something, but we have done that one in the past. There used to be a charter requirement that we meet by the 3rd or the 4th, I believe, but now we don't need to do that. That's no longer a time constraint. I have no problem with the 2nd, unless the Buckeyes are playing that evening.
That's what I'm checking.
Is it on the schedule already?
It'll be a short meeting if the Buckeyes are playing there. Not for my purposes, but for,
It could be
And
Penn
respect-
State. Hi.
in respect for others on council, yeah.
Just never know until we get closer, that's all.
No, they're all on January 1st. There's nothing on this.
I'm fine with it on Tuesday.
I am as well.
Yeah, me too.
All right, that sounds great. So I need a motion to set the regular council meeting schedules per this schedule proposed by the clerk.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and our schedule of meetings is set for the year 2024. Again, we bring it to you this early because we have to have the community calendar that we're working on right now. The second item we need to do is to set trick or treat next year, not this year. But again, the administration is recommending that it be on Halloween itself, October 31st, which next year is on a Thursday. So we need a second motion
Good.
for that.
Second.
And what about times on that? 6 to
We
6
normally
to
do that.
7:30, and we do follow the township with that every year. Oliver Turner verifies with me each year.
Let's let the motion show that it's 6 to 7:30 PM.
Mr. Hayden,
Who brought the motion?
Mr. Keenum brought the motion,
I'll second that motion.
the modified motion.
The modified motion, yes, correct.
Thank you.
All right. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item 13 is committee reports. There was a safety committee meeting this evening at 6:30 PM in these council chambers to discuss flock cameras. Mr. Fry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Safety Committee, as you mentioned, met starting at 6:30. Myself as chair, Mrs. Westphal, Mr. McCann, Ms. Dow, as members of the committee, Mr. Hanson, Mr. Hanem were also in attendance. In addition to members of council, Chief Miller, Mrs. Browning, Mr. Sanford, Ms. Bigelow, the mayor, and Mr. Aller were also in attendance. And Chief Miller had the opportunity to introduce Ms. Amy Cornell from Flock. She did a presentation on the potential camera system. Mrs. Brining commented about how we would handle public record requests associated with the information that would be flowing from this, and her understanding that it would not be available in most circumstances, except due to what's called leads, which I'm still not sure what that stands for, or an ongoing investigation, which I do know what that stands for.
What does it stand for, Chief?
Law enforcement administrative
Data.
data
System.
system, yeah.
That makes me feel better.
Yep.
That's all the
Yeah.
EMV.
If it took the law director and the chief to recite it in more than a couple of seconds, I feel bad. I'm thinking, I should have known that one, but I didn't know it, so
As an
thank you.
architect, I keep thinking it's LEE.
Yes, I know, me too, Mayor. In fact, I spelled it that way, and I'm like, no, I don't think that's the right one. So anyways, it's a license plate reader system, camera system. The city of Sylvania would be a community that would already, is looking at it, but the township's looking at it. The mayor mentioned that City of Rossford just approved it. City of Toledo's had it for some time, and that it has a positive impact on the ability to prevent crime and catch people who are doing things that are criminal nature. The information is only stored for 30 days, although we can modify that term. That's their recommendation, that we hold the information for 30 days. and it's held in an encrypted setting through Amazon Web Services. If we choose to move forward with this particular agreement, the installation would occur 3 to 6 months hence. Mrs. Westfall made a motion to recommend to council legislation. Mr. McCann seconded, and the committee approved the recommendation to council to order up legislation for the connection or for the agreement for the flock camera safety agreement system. So with that, I'll make a motion to ask administration to order to create legislation approving the flock safety agreement to be brought next council meeting, Mrs. Briney, is that good?
Yep,
For the next council meeting.
Second.
Been moved and.
Mr. Mayor, before we,
Mr. Hayden.
we should make note someplace that we consider this public records issue and made a conscious decision that these were not public, these would not be
I'll
public
include
records.
that in the
Because I guarantee you,
legislation.
we're gonna get requests,
Yeah.
and we wanna be prepared to respond to them with a reasoned approach that is defensible.
I've also reached out to the Toledo Law Department, since they've had the cameras in place for some time, to figure out how they handle them and what their
Yeah, it
response
would be nice
is.
to know what the city of Toledo's doing
Yep.
and piggyback on that.
Yep,
Because I think that's, because, you know, that was an issue we had with body cameras.
right.
And, you know, so this sounds like a much better resolution than the one we were talking about before.
Yes, yes.
All right, I believe it's been moved and seconded to prepare legislation for the flock camera contract for our October 2nd meeting. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and we will have that legislation in your packet for the next meeting. Are there any other committee reports to be made at this time? Or any committee referrals? That brings us up to added agenda item 15. Mr. Sanford, you wish to make a JED update?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I passed out a handout, I believe a couple meetings ago, I was mentioning about the JED and said that I could give you an update on how this has worked. The JED stands for the Joint Economic Development District, and we have one that we're participating in, that it is contained in the property of Oakley Village, that whether it's a property or a set area, and it would be located in the township, and it enables us to treat that area as if it were in the city. And we can collect our income tax in that area, and then split the income tax with the township, since it's in the township. So the one that we have established has worked well. It's exceeding what we thought it was gonna do financially. I gave a quick breakdown. I didn't do a good job of separating down there at the bottom, but so in 2021, the gross tax revenue was over $47,000, and that went to over $65,000 last year, and we're well on our way in 2023 again, collecting the income tax. So to date, we've collected over $86,000 in income tax that would not have been able to be collected, and splitting that 50-50 with the township. And that's the net revenue after the expenses, and that's what the expenses are above. The administration fee is the city keeps that fee, that 2%. That's the fee for Toby's office to collect the income tax in the tax office, and then he provides us with all the financial reports. I've listed who's on the JED board. We have 5 members. And the additional sheets just give you some more information of how the JED works. And this has worked well in other parts of the state that have them, where the cities and townships are working together. And again, we've got about 4 other areas we're looking at that I think that could be developed over the next 5 years. The most prominent one that will happen first will be on Central Avenue where the Giant Eagle was located. That whole area was purchased, and it's not just what the storage unit place, but all the other businesses. There's about, I think, 3 or 4 other ones that'll be involved in that. And we're hoping for that to become a JED also. So that'd be something that we would be voting on in the future. But again, I just wanted to see if you had any questions and wanted to give you an update of how that's working today.
Thank you, Mr. Sanford. This is good news. We had to lobby the township very hard to bring this about. We threatened annexation of several areas to get them to do this, but I think they're glad that it happened as well. Our relationship with the township is now very stable, and they are the ones that are proposing more JED zones because they like the income as well.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question for Mr. Sanford. The 4 areas that you commented, would those be separate agreements, or would they fall under the auspices of of the document that created this particular JED? Or hasn't that been determined yet?
I think it's a combination, in that instead of having, our discussions on that now with the board level has been to have one board overseeing all of the JEDs. And we would expand having members onto the board then. You try to have someone representative of the area, whether it's a business or just a representative of that area. And you'd want someone with that instead of duplicating the city and the township person on 4 or 5 boards going forward. So the concept of having one board makes sense, and then we'd have, a lot to address at the board meetings.
Right. So we avoid the balkanization.
Yes.
So you're not going to nothing but JED meetings
No, the
for your
JED
day.
meetings are,
Hopefully we have 20 of these, but I'd prefer you not to go to 20 meetings, a month if you don't have to, or whatever.
when we started, we were meeting monthly, and now we're down to quarterly, because we
Right.
just don't have a lot of business.
Sure.
And again, what I do want to make note, the split, even though the administration fee, we take off the top. But 2 things I want to make you aware of, where in this one, we said the maintenance fund and the split, that will vary with every project. That will vary, so depending on where the location is, that could split, and that's the part we have to work out between the city and the township on what the split would be, and whatever the area is and what particulars are, what would go into the maintenance fund. In some communities, when, you see a JED and it comes into usually a improvement in the roads, a traffic light, something to that effect, tends to be the project that we're looking for. But it's definitely a good trend, and we continue to investigate other possible JEDs.
Thank you.
Any additional questions for Mr. Sanford? Hearing none, that brings us to the end of our agenda. The meeting minutes are there for the Architecture Review Board and Municipal Planning Commission. We did put into council packets, or Mr. Schroyer did, a tax update for you. You can see that tax receipts are in a positive direction by 2.5%. That is less than we've had in previous years, but I'd like to temper that with the understanding that 2 facilities have closed on the Flower Hospital campus, and we're still in a positive mode. So I take that as a positive. In my discussions with Flower Hospital president, they are hopeful of reactivating one, if not both of those facilities under different management, apart from ProMedica. So those, certainly the new facility right along Arun Road, I can't believe that one's gonna stay closed very long. It is closed. I've watched it. I've watched the parked cars go down over the last couple of months. Now there's nothing there except their unused vehicles sitting along the side. But that one I think will come back. They are actively working to lease that property. Okay. With that, we're at the end. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and this council stands adjourned until our next regularly scheduled meeting 2 weeks from tonight on Monday, October 2nd, 2023 at 7:30 PM. Thank you for attending, Sharon.